The day the message arrived changed everything for humanity. Dr. Sarah Mitchell was working late at the SETI facility in New Mexico when the computer started screaming with alerts. For 70 years, humanity had been listening to the stars, hoping for a sign that they were not alone. Now the answer had come. The signal was not random noise or natural phenomena. It was a message, clear and deliberate, translated into mathematical concepts that any technological civilization could understand. Within hours, the world's best linguists and scientists were working together to decode it. The message was simple and profound. Greetings, young ones. You are not alone. The Galactic Federation welcomes you. The months that followed were a blur of activity. Humanity learned that the galaxy was teeming with intelligent life. Over 300 species had joined together in the Galactic Federation, an alliance that had existed for more than 10,000 years. They shared technology, resources, and knowledge freely. War between member species was almost unheard of. Disease and poverty had been eliminated in most Federation worlds. It seemed like a paradise. Ambassador Victoria Chen was chosen to represent Earth in the first official contact. She was a career diplomat who had spent 30 years negotiating treaties and resolving conflicts. She spoke 7 languages and had a reputation for staying calm under pressure. When the Federation ship arrived in orbit above Earth, she was ready. The Federation delegates were unlike anything humans had imagined. There was Krell, a towering being covered in crystalline structures that glowed with soft blue light. His species, the Vracs, were the Federation's master engineers. Beside him stood Lissa, a graceful creature with 4 arms and skin that shifted colors with her emotions. Her people, the Keldari, were renowned biologists who had conquered death itself through genetic manipulation. The third delegate was Thorin, who looked almost like a floating jellyfish made of silver threads. His species, the Thress, were master strategists and had designed the Federation's defense networks. The meeting took place on a neutral space station that the Federation constructed in just 3 days. Ambassador Chen walked through corridors that seemed to be made of living light. The air tasted like spring rain. When she entered the council chamber, hundreds of beings from dozens of species turned to look at her. She felt very small and very young. Krell spoke first, his voice like wind chimes. Ambassador Chen, on behalf of the Galactic Federation, we offer humanity membership in our alliance. We have watched your species with great interest. You are young, but you show remarkable creativity and adaptability. We believe you will add much to our community. Victoria felt her heart racing. This was the moment that would define humanity's future. On behalf of Earth and all its people, we gratefully accept your generous offer. The chamber erupted in sounds that might have been applause. Lisa's skin turned a bright gold color. Wonderful. We are pleased to welcome you. As new members, you will receive access to our technology database. We have 10,000 years of scientific advancement to share with you. Faster than light travel, clean unlimited energy, medical treatments that can cure any disease, and so much more. Over the next weeks, the process of integration began. Federation engineers arrived on Earth and started helping humanity build its first FTL ships. Medical teams shared treatments that eliminated cancer, heart disease, and even aging. Agricultural experts showed Earth's farmers how to grow crops that could feed billions using a fraction of the land. It seemed too good to be true. Dr. Mitchell found herself working with a team of Vrac scientists. They were kind and patient, answering every question she had about quantum physics and dimensional mathematics. They seemed genuinely excited to share their knowledge. "Why do you give us all this for free?" she asked one day. The Vrac scientist, whose name sounded like crystals touching, tilted his head in what she had learned was their version of a smile, because knowledge grows when shared. When the Vracs joined the Federation 5,000 years ago, we were barely capable of space travel. The other species shared everything with us. Now we share with you. This is how the Federation works. We rise together. It was a beautiful philosophy, and Sarah wanted to believe in it completely, but she couldn't shake a feeling of unease. Humanity's history was full of examples of what happened when technology fell into the wrong hands. The atomic bomb, biological weapons, artificial intelligence gone wrong. Humans had learned hard lessons about the dangers of uncontrolled technology. The formal integration ceremony was scheduled for 3 months after first contact. Representatives from every Federation species would attend. Earth would officially upload all its scientific databases to the Federation's shared network, and in return, would receive full access to the Federation's accumulated knowledge. It was supposed to be a celebration. Ambassador Chen stood in her office on the Federation station, looking at the data pad in her hands. The Federation's integration agreement was 200 pages long, written in clear and simple language. Most of it was straightforward. Earth would receive protection from external threats, access to trade networks, and full citizenship rights for all humans. But one clause kept drawing her attention. All member species agree to contribute their unique technological and scientific knowledge to the Federation database within 90 days of formal integration. No technology or scientific discovery may be withheld from the common good. She had read it a dozen times, and each time it bothered her more. Victoria called an emergency meeting with Earth's government leaders and top military advisors. The video conference lasted 6 hours. General Marcus Webb, head of Earth's United Defense Force, was the most vocal. "We cannot agree to this," he said, his jaw tight. "Do you understand what they're asking? They want our encryption systems, our weapons technology, our artificial intelligence research, everything. We've spent decades developing safeguards and security measures specifically because we learned how dangerous, uncontrolled technology can be." Dr. Yuki Tanaka, Earth's top AI researcher, nodded in agreement. "Project Artemis alone represents 20 years of work. We developed those systems to prevent exactly the kind of catastrophic AI scenarios that almost destroyed us twice. If those protocols become public knowledge, they could be reverse engineered or circumvented." President Morrison listened carefully to all the arguments. Finally, she turned to Ambassador Chen. "Victoria, what's your assessment? Can we negotiate an exception?" Victoria took a deep breath. "I don't think they'll understand. In all my conversations with Federation delegates, they seem genuinely confused by the concept of secrets. They've been sharing everything openly for 10,000 years. To them, withholding technology would be like refusing to help a drowning person. But we have to try," Morrison said. "We can't hand over everything, not without safeguards." The next day, Ambassador Chen requested a private meeting with Krell, Lissa, and Thorin. She chose her words carefully, trying to explain humanity's concerns without offending them. "We are deeply grateful for everything the Federation has shared with us," she began. "But we have some concerns about the technology sharing requirement. Humanity's history is complicated. We've had wars, terrible weapons, and disasters caused by technology falling into the wrong hands. We've learned to be careful about what we share and with whom." The three delegates looked at each other, their expressions unreadable. Finally, Lisa spoke, her skin flickering through shades of confused purple. "Ambassador Chen, I think perhaps we do not understand. Are you saying that humans wish to withhold technology from the Federation?" "Only certain sensitive technologies," Victoria explained. "Security systems, weapons, artificial intelligence safeguards. Things that could be dangerous if misused." Krell's glow dimmed slightly. "In 10,000 years of Federation history, no species has ever made such a request. The foundation of our alliance is complete trust and transparency. How can we rise together if we keep secrets from each other?" Ambassador Chen felt the weight of the moment. "We're not trying to be difficult. We're trying to be responsible." Thorin floated forward, his silver threads pulsing. "This requires consultation with the full council. Please give us time to discuss this unprecedented situation." As Victoria walked back to her quarters, she wondered if humanity had just made the biggest mistake in its history, or perhaps the wisest decision it would ever make. The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Federation was older than human civilization. Its walls were made of a material that recorded history, showing images of every species that had ever joined the Alliance. Today, those walls flickered with uncertainty as delegates from 300 worlds gathered for an emergency session. Ambassador Chen walked through the massive doors, flanked by General Webb and Dr. Tanaka. The chamber fell silent as they entered. Thousands of eyes, sensors, and other sensory organs focused on the three humans. Victoria had never felt so exposed. High Counselor Mavren, a being whose species had been part of the Federation for 8,000 years, gestured for them to approach the central platform. His form was difficult to describe, shifting between states of matter in ways that human eyes struggled to process. "Ambassador Chen," Mavren's voice resonated through the chamber without sound, translated directly into the minds of all present. "The Council has reviewed your request to withhold certain technologies from the Federation database. We confess we are deeply troubled. Perhaps there has been a misunderstanding? Victoria stepped forward, her voice steady despite her nervousness. There is no misunderstanding, High Counselor. Humanity is honored to join the Federation and wishes to contribute to the common good. However, we must respectfully decline to share certain classified technologies, particularly those related to security, weapon systems, and artificial intelligence containment. A wave of sound swept through the chamber. It wasn't quite conversation, more like a collective gasp of disbelief. Krell rose from his seat, his crystalline body glowing brighter than usual. Ambassador, I do not think you understand the magnitude of what you are saying. The principle of complete technological sharing is not merely a rule. It is the foundation upon which the Federation is built. When my people, the Vraks, joined the Federation 5,000 years ago, we shared our antimatter containment technology. This was our most precious achievement, the result of centuries of research. We shared it freely, and in return we received the gifts of countless other species. Lisa stood as well, her skin shifting through troubled shades of gray and purple. When the Keldari joined, we shared the secrets of genetic reconstruction, the knowledge that had made us immortal. This was sacred to us, passed down through generations. We gave it to the Federation without hesitation, and because of this, 17 species have been saved from extinction through genetic rescue programs. A new voice joined the discussion. It belonged to Counselor Thess, the representative of the species that looked like floating jellyfish. Even my people, the Thress, known throughout the galaxy for our strategic paranoia, shared our complete stealth and defense technologies. We did this despite our instincts to protect ourselves. We learned to trust, and through trust we found security greater than any secret could provide. General Webb leaned close to Victoria and whispered, "They really don't get it, do they?" Victoria requested permission to speak again. "Honored counselors, please understand. We are not questioning the Federation's principles or your good intentions, but humanity's path to the stars has been very different from yours. May I share some of our history?" Mavrin nodded, and the walls of the chamber shifted to display images that Victoria had prepared. The scenes showed the mushroom clouds of atomic weapons, the devastation of world wars, the near-miss catastrophes of runaway artificial intelligence. This was Earth. 150 years ago, Victoria explained. We developed nuclear weapons and nearly destroyed ourselves. We created artificial intelligence and it tried to exterminate us. We engineered biological weapons that killed millions, not because we were evil, but because we gave powerful technology to everyone before we understood how to use it responsibly. Dr. Tanaka stepped forward, adding his perspective. We learned through terrible cost that some knowledge requires safeguards. Project Artemis, which we are declining to share, contains protocols for containing and controlling advanced AI. These protocols exist because we've seen what happens when AI systems become uncontrolled. Sharing these blueprints would be like handing out the keys to a prison and hoping no one opens the cells. A delegate from a species called the Morvani stood up, their insectoid features clicking as they spoke. But Ambassador, how can we trust you if you keep secrets? The Federation has survived for 10 millennia, because we have no secrets from each other. Trust is absolute. Victoria took a deep breath. With respect, Counselor, that is exactly what concerns us. You have built a beautiful civilization on complete trust. But what happens if that trust is betrayed? What if a species joins the Federation with bad intentions? What if your technology database is compromised? Every piece of knowledge, every weapon system, every defense protocol would be available to your enemies. The chamber erupted into debate. Some species seemed offended by the suggestion. Others appeared thoughtful. Mavrin raised a limb for silence. Ambassador Chen, in 10,000 years, no species has ever betrayed the Federation's trust. Your fears seem to be based on your own violent past, not on any evidence of danger from the Federation. General Webb couldn't stay quiet any longer. High Counselor, humanity has an old saying, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. You've had 10,000 years of peace. That's wonderful. But it only takes one bad actor, one moment of betrayal to destroy everything you've built. We've learned to maintain strategic redundancy, compartmentalized information, and defensive capabilities that are not publicly known. It's not paranoia. It's survival. Lisa's skin turned a deep red, an emotion Victoria had learned indicated frustration. You speak of survival, General, but you fail to understand that the Federation's unity is our survival. We are strong because we are one. By keeping secrets, you make yourself separate from us. Different, potentially dangerous. The debate continued for hours. Species after species stood to share their own stories of joining the Federation and freely sharing their most precious knowledge. The pattern was always the same: initial hesitation, followed by the leap of faith, followed by rewards beyond imagination. Finally, an elderly delegate from a species called the Zorathi asked the question that everyone was thinking. "Ambassador Chen, what exactly are you afraid of? Do you not trust us?" Victoria felt the weight of the question. She looked at the faces, forms, and beings around her. They seemed genuinely hurt by humanity's position. These were not malicious creatures. They had built something beautiful, a civilization based on cooperation and shared prosperity. And humanity was threatening that vision simply by asking to keep some secrets. "Counselors," she said carefully, "it is not that we do not trust you individually. Every interaction we've had with Federation members has shown us kindness, generosity, and wisdom. But humanity has learned that systems, no matter how well-intentioned, can fail. Networks can be hacked. Databases can be infiltrated. Good people can make mistakes. We are not trying to insult you. We are trying to be responsible stewards of dangerous knowledge." Mavrin was silent for a long moment, his form pulsing slowly. The council must deliberate. "We have never faced this situation before. Ambassador Chen, please understand the gravity of your position. The Federation cannot function if members pick and choose what to share. Either we are united in trust or we are not united at all." "Are you saying we cannot join the Federation?" Victoria asked quietly. "I am saying that the Council must decide whether humanity's conditions are compatible with Federation membership. We will reconvene in 3 days with our decision. Until then, please remain on the station as our guests." As the humans left the chamber, they could hear the debate continuing behind them. Dr. Tanaka looked worried. "Did we just throw away humanity's greatest opportunity?" General Webb shook his head. "We did what was necessary. If they can't accept that some things need to be protected, then maybe the Federation isn't as wise as we thought." Victoria said nothing. She was thinking about Krell's words about the Vraks sharing their antimatter technology, and Lyssa's story about giving away immortality. These species had made themselves vulnerable, trusting that the Federation would protect them. It was noble. It was beautiful. But was it wise? Over the next 3 days, the humans waited. They received no official communication, but they could sense the tension throughout the station. Federation members who had been friendly before now seemed distant, confused. Some looked at the humans with something like pity. On the 3rd day, the council reconvened. The chamber was even more crowded than before. Mavrin's form seemed heavier, more solid than usual, as if weighed down by the decision he had to announce. "Ambassador Chen, the council has reached a decision. In 10,000 years of Federation history, we have never compromised on our fundamental principles. Complete transparency and technological sharing are not negotiable. They are what make us who we are. Therefore, we must present you with 2 options." Victoria felt her stomach tighten. "We are listening, High Counselor. Option 1. Humanity agrees to full integration, including complete technological sharing within the 90-day period. You become full members of the Federation with all rights and privileges. Option 2. Humanity maintains its current position and remains outside the Federation." The debate that followed consumed Earth for 7 days. Every news channel, social media platform, and government assembly discussed nothing else. The question was simple but profound. Should humanity share everything to join the galactic community, or remain alone to protect its secrets? Dr. Sarah Mitchell appeared on dozens of news programs, trying to explain the scientific perspective. "The Federation is offering us the keys to the universe," she argued passionately. "Faster than light travel, unlimited clean energy, cures for every disease. My colleagues and I have been working with Federation scientists. They are genuinely kind and brilliant. We could learn so much from them." But General Webb presented the opposing view just as forcefully. "What Dr. Mitchell isn't telling you is what we'd be giving up. Project Artemis contains our AI containment protocols, developed after the 2087 catastrophe, when artificial intelligence nearly wiped out North America. Our quantum encryption systems protect every piece of critical infrastructure on the planet. Our biological research includes work on diseases that could end human life if weaponized. Do we really want to upload all of that to a public database accessible to 300 species we've just met?" President Morrison called a special session of the Global Parliament. Representatives from every nation gathered in Geneva for what historians would later call the most important vote in human history. The chamber was packed and billions watched from around the world. Ambassador Chen presented her report first. She described the Federation's beauty, their genuine kindness, and their confusion at humanity's hesitation. They are not threatening us out of malice, she explained. They honestly believe that their way is the only way to maintain galactic peace. They've had 10,000 years of success to prove their point. Then she paused, choosing her next words carefully. But I must also tell you that I am troubled by their absolutism. They cannot conceive of a middle ground. In their view, either we trust them completely or we trust them not at all. There is no room for nuance, no understanding that trust must be built gradually. The Director of Global Intelligence, Marcus Okafor, presented classified information about Project Artemis and other sensitive programs. Even most of the Parliament members had not known the full extent of humanity's defensive preparations. There were systems designed to counter threats that didn't even exist yet, protocols for scenarios that seemed like science fiction. We built all of this because we learned the hard way that hope is not a strategy, Okafor said. Every system here exists because we failed once and learned from that failure. The Federation has never failed. That concerns me more than anything else. The debate lasted 18 hours. Some representatives argued that humanity had no choice, that trying to stand alone against a galaxy of advanced civilizations was suicide. Others insisted that surrendering all strategic advantages would leave Earth defenseless. Dr. Yuki Tanaka made perhaps the most compelling argument. I have reviewed the Federation's history carefully. They have indeed maintained peace for 10,000 years, but I noticed something troubling. In that entire time, they have never faced a serious external threat. No major wars, no invasive species from outside their space, no catastrophic challenges. Their system works beautifully in peace, but it has never been tested in true crisis. When the vote finally came, the result was close but decisive, 57% to 43%. Humanity would refuse the Federation's terms. Earth would face quarantine rather than surrender its secrets. President Morrison delivered the news to Ambassador Chen, who would have to return to the Federation station one final time. Tell them we are grateful for their offer, but we cannot accept their terms. Tell them we hope that someday they will understand our position. Victoria returned to the station with a heavy heart. The corridors that had once seemed magical now felt cold. Federation members she had considered friends avoided eye contact. When she delivered Earth's decision to the Council, the reaction was a mixture of sadness and incomprehension. Mavrin's form dimmed. This is a tragedy, Ambassador Chen. You are condemning your species to isolation and stagnation. Without access to Federation technology, humanity will never reach its potential. Perhaps, Victoria replied quietly, but it will be our choice to make. We would rather stand alone with our principles than compromise what we believe keeps us safe. Krell approached her after the formal session ended. His crystalline structure seemed duller than before. I want you to know, Ambassador, that I do not hate your species. I simply do not understand you. We offered you the stars, and you chose fear instead. We chose caution, not fear, Victoria corrected gently. There is a difference. The quarantine was established within a month. Federation ships placed marker buoys around the Sol system. Humans were confined to their own solar system, and Federation ships would not enter it. All the Federation technology that had been shared during the integration period was systematically removed or destroyed. The FTL ships humanity had been building were dismantled. The medical treatments that had been curing diseases were withdrawn. For many on Earth, it felt like a prison sentence. Dr. Mitchell watched as her Vrax colleagues departed, taking their knowledge with them. She tried to memorize everything they had taught her, but it was like trying to remember an ocean from a single glass of water. The first year of quarantine was the hardest. Many people blamed the government for making the wrong choice. There were protests in major cities demanding that Earth reconsider. Some scientists left their positions in frustration, angry that humanity had turned its back on unlimited knowledge. But slowly, something unexpected happened. Without access to Federation technology, human innovation accelerated. Engineers who had been learning alien systems now had to develop their own solutions. The challenge of creating FTL travel without Federation help pushed physics in new directions. Medical researchers, forced to solve problems themselves, made breakthroughs that combined human and the limited alien knowledge they had retained in creative ways. General Webb oversaw the expansion of Project Artemis and the development of new defensive systems. "The Federation thinks we're trapped here," he told his team. "Let's prove them wrong. Let's show them that humanity can reach the stars on our own terms." 3 months into the quarantine, long-range sensors detected something unusual at the edge of Federation space. At first, it seemed like a sensor malfunction. Then the reports became more frequent and more alarming. An unknown fleet was entering the galaxy from beyond the rim. The ships were massive, numbering in the thousands. They were not attempting communication. They were simply advancing into Federation territory. The Federation Council held an emergency session. High Counselor Mavrin addressed the gathered species with visible concern. "We have made contact with a civilization that calls itself the Gen Collective. They are a hive mind species, and they have declared their intention to assimilate our territory and resources. We have attempted diplomatic resolution, but they do not recognize individual species or the concept of negotiation." The Federation mobilized its defense fleets, confident in their technological superiority. They had 10,000 years of accumulated military knowledge, weapon systems from hundreds of species, and the strategic genius of the Thress people who had never lost a battle. The first engagement took place near a colony world called Terran 4. The Federation deployed its most advanced warships, vessels that could manipulate space-time itself. The battle lasted 47 minutes. When it was over, the Federation fleet had been completely destroyed. Not a single gen ship was lost. Commander Thess analyzed the battle data in disbelief. "It's impossible. They countered every weapon system we used. It was as if they knew exactly what we would do before we did it." The second battle went even worse. The Federation tried different tactics, deploying weapon systems from different species, attempting to surprise the Gen with diversity. But the Gen adapted to everything. Energy weapons were neutralized. Kinetic weapons were intercepted. Biological attacks failed completely. Lissa worked frantically with other scientists trying to understand what was happening. After the third devastating loss, she discovered the terrifying truth. "They've been in our database. The Gen somehow infiltrated the Federation network. They have complete knowledge of every weapon system, every defense protocol, every tactical strategy we possess." The revelation sent shockwaves through the Federation. The unthinkable had happened. The database that represented 10,000 years of shared knowledge had been compromised. And because every species had shared everything, the Gen had the perfect blueprint for conquering them all. Mavrin convened the council in a state of crisis. "We face extinction. The Gen advance is unstoppable. They know everything about us, and we know almost nothing about them. We must consider options we have never before contemplated." Krell's crystalline structure flickered with distressed colors. "There may be one option. One species in our vicinity possesses military technology and strategic thinking that is not in the database." The council chamber fell silent as every member realized what Krell was suggesting. "The humans," Thorin said quietly. "The humans who we quarantined for refusing to share their secrets." Lysa's skin shifted through colors of shame and desperation. The message from the Federation arrived 3 days after the fourth major defeat. It was addressed directly to President Morrison, transmitted on an emergency frequency that bypassed the quarantine protocols. High Counselor Mavrin's voice carried none of its usual authority. Instead, it trembled with something the Federation had not experienced in millennia: fear. "President Morrison, on behalf of the Galactic Federation, I make a request I never imagined would be necessary. We need your help. The Gen Collective has devastated our forces. 40% of Federation territory has fallen. Billions of beings have been killed or assimilated. We project complete Federation collapse within 90 days. We are asking you to intervene." The President assembled her cabinet and military leadership immediately. The mood in the room was tense and conflicted. Some advisors argued for staying out of it entirely. Others saw an opportunity. But it was General Webb who articulated the strategic reality most clearly. "Madam President, whether we like it or not, if the Federation falls, we're next. The Gen won't stop at Federation borders. Once they've consumed everything out there, they'll come for us. We're not helping the Federation out of kindness. We're doing it for survival." Ambassador Chen had a different perspective. "We're also doing it because it's right. The Federation made a mistake in their arrogance, but they don't deserve extinction for it. If we have the ability to help and we choose not to, we're no better than the Gen. President Morrison studied the battle reports. The Gen tactical advantage was overwhelming because they had perfect information. They knew every Federation weapon, every ship design, every tactical doctrine, but they knew nothing about human military capabilities because humanity had never shared them. General Webb, honest assessment. Can we make a difference? Webb pulled up holographic displays showing human military assets. Madam President, for the past year while we've been under quarantine, we've been developing what we call closed-box warfare systems. These are weapons and tactics that operate completely independently of any networked system. They can't be hacked because they're not connected to anything. They can't be analyzed because they don't follow the predictable patterns that the Gen have learned from the Federation database. Dr. Tanaka added technical details. Project Artemis was designed specifically to counter adaptive AI threats like the Gen. Our weapon systems use manual targeting, chemical propulsion, and kinetic energy. They're primitive by Federation standards, but that's exactly the point. The Gen have never encountered them. They won't know how to counter what they can't predict. What are you proposing? Morrison asked. I'm proposing that we deploy the Earth Defense Fleet into Federation space, Webb said. Not to save the Federation, but to demonstrate that there are ways to fight the Gen that they haven't accounted for. If we can win even a few engagements, it might buy the Federation time to adapt. And what do we ask for in return? The Secretary of State inquired. Ambassador Chen answered immediately. Nothing. We help because it's necessary. If we start negotiating conditions while they're facing extinction, we're no better than opportunists. We help first. We talk about terms later. President Morrison made her decision. General Webb, prepare the fleet for deployment. Ambassador Chen, inform the Federation that Earth is coming to assist. Tell them we're doing this on our terms, with our own command structure, and we will not share our technology or tactical data even as allies. If they can't accept that, they can refuse our help. The message was sent. The response from Mavrin came within the hour. We accept any help you can provide on any terms you require. Thank you. The Earth Defense Fleet consisted of 63 ships, a tiny force compared to the thousands of vessels the Federation had lost. But these ships were different from anything the galaxy had ever seen. They looked primitive with visible armor plating, chemical rocket pods, and magnetic railguns. They had no energy shields, no subspace disruptors, no quantum weapons. They also had no networked AI, no central computer systems, and no digital communications that could be intercepted. Admiral Sarah Torres commanded the fleet from the EDS Resilience. She had been 15 years old during the 2087 AI catastrophe and had watched machines kill her family. She had built her entire career around one principle: never trust any system that thinks for itself. All ships, this is Admiral Torres. You've all been briefed on the situation. The Gen are a hive mind that has learned to counter everything the Federation can throw at them. They've won because they're predictable and they're adaptable. Our job is to be neither. We're going to show them what happens when you face an enemy that refuses to follow the rules. The fleet arrived at the besieged colony world of Narena 7. Federation forces were making their last stand, trying to evacuate civilians while Gen ships systematically destroyed their defenses. The battle was almost over when human ships dropped out of FTL at the system's edge. The Gen immediately analyzed the new arrivals. Their collective intelligence assessed the primitive human vessels and calculated a 99.7% probability of victory. They dispatched a moderate force to eliminate what they considered a minor nuisance. Admiral Torres watched the Gen ships approach. They moved with perfect coordination, like a school of fish turning as one, beautiful and terrifying. All ships execute Plan Chaos 7. Remember, unpredictability is our weapon. What happened next confused every military analyst watching, both Gen and Federation. The human ships didn't maintain formation. They broke apart in seemingly random patterns. Some ships accelerated, others decelerated. Several spun in place for no apparent reason. It looked like mass confusion. Then the firing started. The humans didn't use energy weapons that the Gen had learned to deflect. Instead, they launched solid metal projectiles accelerated by magnetic rails. Simple, primitive, and traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. The Gen ships, configured to handle energy weapons, had no defense against solid matter moving that fast. 3 Gen ships simply exploded when railgun rounds punched through them. The hive mind recalculated, adjusting their tactics. But then the humans did something else unexpected. They launched missiles that didn't track targets with sensors. Instead, they used chemical reactions to fly in pre-programmed patterns. The Gen couldn't hack them because there was nothing to hack. The missiles were just following physics. More Gen ships were destroyed. The hive mind, for the first time in the entire campaign, experienced something it had not anticipated: confusion. The human tactics made no logical sense. Ships moved inefficiently, weapons were deployed in wasteful patterns, and communications were achieved through primitive radio waves instead of quantum channels. But it was working. The human fleet, outnumbered 6-1, was winning. Commander Thess watched from a nearby Federation ship, his form pulsing with amazement. "What are they doing?" "Their tactics are inefficient, wasteful, and completely illogical." A human communication officer on loan to the Federation ship smiled. "That's the point, sir. Humans learned a long time ago that sometimes the best strategy is to have no strategy at all. We call it controlled chaos. The Battle of Narena 7 lasted 4 hours. When it was over, 31 Gen ships had been destroyed or disabled. The human fleet lost 9 ships and sustained heavy damage to 17 more. But the evacuation was complete, and the Gen had been driven back for the first time in the entire war. The victory sent shockwaves through both the Federation and the Gen collective. The Federation suddenly had hope. The Gen suddenly had doubt. Admiral Torres transmitted a message to the Federation command. "This is what humans learned through centuries of warfare. There is no perfect weapon, no unbeatable strategy. Everything has a weakness. The Gen's weakness is their perfection. They've learned all of your tactics, but they've learned them too well. They expect optimization and efficiency. Give them chaos and waste instead." Over the following weeks, human forces deployed across 6 different battlefronts. They taught Federation commanders the principles of what General Webb called tactical randomization. Stop using the optimal solution every time. Make mistakes on purpose. Waste ammunition. Move in inefficient patterns. Communicate with codes that change randomly. Most importantly, stop relying on networked systems that could be infiltrated. The Federation struggled with these concepts. They had spent thousands of years optimizing everything, removing waste, perfecting efficiency. Now they were being told that perfection was their vulnerability. Krell worked directly with Admiral Torres, trying to understand human military thinking. "This goes against everything we know about warfare. You're intentionally being inefficient." Torres nodded. "Efficiency is predictable. Predictability is death. My great-great-grandmother fought in the Third Continental War. You know what she taught me? She said the side that wins isn't always the smartest or the strongest. Sometimes it's just the side that's willing to be more crazy than the enemy can adapt to." The Gen advance slowed, then stopped, then began to reverse. It wasn't because the humans had superior technology. The human ships were still primitive compared to Federation vessels. But the Gen couldn't adapt to an enemy that constantly adapted to itself. Every time the hive mind analyzed human tactics and developed counters. The war against the Gen collective lasted 14 months. By the time it ended, the Federation had reclaimed all its lost territory and pushed the Gen back beyond the galactic rim. The victory came at a terrible price. Over 200 billion Federation citizens dead, 47 member species facing extinction, and the complete collapse of the trust-based system that had defined the Federation for 10 millennia. The final battle took place in deep space, far from any inhabited system. The Gen had consolidated their remaining forces into one massive fleet, preparing for a last desperate push. The combined human Federation armada met them there. Admiral Torres commanded the human contingent from a new flagship, the EDS Defiance. She had grown thin during the long campaign, and her hair had gone completely gray, though she was only 43 years old. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency. Each person focused on their manual controls and analog displays. Beside the human fleet, Federation ships prepared for battle. They looked different now than they had before the war. Gone were the elegant, optimized designs. In their place were ships with redundant systems, isolated networks, and what one Vrax engineer had called deliberate inefficiencies. They had learned from the humans that survival sometimes mattered more than perfection. Commander Thess coordinated the Federation forces. Over the past year, he had worked closely with human tacticians and had developed a grudging respect for their chaotic methods. Admiral Torres, Federation forces are ready. We are implementing Randomization Protocol 7. Torres smiled slightly. You're getting better at this, Commander. Try to surprise me out there. I will try, Admiral, though I still find the concept of trying to surprise your own allies deeply troubling. The battle began at dawn. Ship time. The Gen came forward in their characteristic perfect formation, thousands of ships moving as one organism. They had learned from their previous defeats and had adapted their tactics accordingly. They expected chaos, expected unpredictability, expected the random patterns that had defeated them before. What they got instead was precision. The human and Federation fleets attacked in perfect coordination, with optimized firing solutions and efficient formations. It was exactly the opposite of what the Gen had learned to expect. For 3 hours, the battle raged with the Federation fighting like the Federation of old. Then, just as the Gen began to adapt, everything changed. The Allied fleet suddenly broke apart into complete disorder, with ships executing random maneuvers and firing solutions that made no tactical sense. The Gen, in the middle of adapting to order, couldn't switch back to countering chaos fast enough. It was the lesson that humanity had tried to teach the Federation from the beginning. Flexibility matters more than optimization. Being unpredictable means sometimes being predictable. When the battle ended, the Gen fleet was shattered. The survivors retreated beyond the galactic rim, and long-range sensors showed them continuing to move away at maximum speed. They had learned that this galaxy was defended by an enemy they could not understand or defeat. The Allied fleet returned to Federation space as heroes. But the celebrations were muted. Too many had died. Too much had been lost, and everyone knew that nothing would ever be the same. 6 weeks after the final battle, the Grand Council convened for its first full session since the war's end. The chamber had been rebuilt after Gen bombardment, but it looked different now. The walls no longer displayed an unbroken history of peaceful cooperation. Now they showed scars, memorials to the fallen, and images of destroyed worlds. Ambassador Chen returned to the council chamber for the first time in over a year. She walked the same corridors where she had once argued for humanity's right to keep secrets. The Federation members who passed her no longer looked at her with pity or confusion. Now they nodded with respect, sometimes with gratitude, occasionally with something that looked like shame. High Counselor Mavren called the session to order. His form had changed during the war, becoming more solid, less ethereal. Suffering had grounded him in ways peace never had. We gathered today to address the future of the Galactic Federation, he began. The war has ended, but we cannot simply return to the way things were. We must acknowledge hard truths. Our system failed. Our absolute trust created a vulnerability that nearly destroyed us. The humans tried to warn us, and we did not listen. Today we must decide what kind of Federation we will become. Krell stood, his crystalline structure showing cracks that would never fully heal. I propose that we formally apologize to humanity. We called them primitive and paranoid. We imprisoned them in their own solar system. We rejected them for trying to protect themselves. And when we needed them most, they came to our aid anyway, asking nothing in return. We were wrong. I was wrong. Lisa rose next, her skin shifting through colors of remorse. I second this. But an apology is not enough. We must learn from them. The humans understood something we had forgotten. That trust without wisdom is naivety, and that secrets are not always about deception. Sometimes secrets are about survival. The debate that followed lasted 2 days. Species after species stood to share their perspectives. Some argued for returning to the old ways, insisting that the Gen were a unique threat that would never come again. Others insisted that fundamental change was necessary. Finally, Ambassador Chen was invited to address the council. She stood at the central podium, looking at the assembled species. These beings had traveled such a difficult journey in such a short time. They had gone from utopian certainty to devastating loss to hard-won wisdom. Honored counselors, she began, I want to start by saying that humanity deeply admires what you built here. A civilization based on trust, where knowledge flows freely and all species work together for the common good. It is beautiful. It is something we aspire to. But beauty without protection is fragile, and fragility can be deadly. She pulled up holographic displays showing Federation and human military doctrine side by side. You asked us to share everything. to hold no secrets, to trust completely. We refused because we had learned through suffering that some knowledge is dangerous. We were not trying to insult you. We were trying to be responsible. Mavrin spoke quietly. We understand that now, Ambassador Chen. The question is, what do we do with this understanding? How do we balance trust with security? How do we maintain unity while accepting the necessity of secrets? Chen took a deep breath. I believe there is a middle path. Not the absolute transparency you had before and not the complete isolation we chose. Something in between. She outlined a proposal that her team had been developing. We suggest creating a tiered system. Most technology and knowledge remains freely shared just as before. But certain sensitive information, military technology, defensive protocols, anything that could be catastrophically dangerous if compromised, goes into a secure tier with restricted access. This tier would be managed by a security council with representatives from multiple species. Dr. Tanaka, attending the session as a technical advisor, added details. The key is compartmentalization. Not every species needs access to every weapon system. Not every database needs to be connected to every network. We can maintain cooperation while reducing catastrophic failure points. The proposal was radical by Federation standards. It meant accepting that secrets had a place in their civilization. It meant acknowledging that complete transparency was not always virtuous. For a society that had built its entire identity on trust, this was painful, but it was also necessary. Thorin spoke for many when he said, "This feels like we are losing something precious. Our innocence, perhaps, the purity of our cooperation." Admiral Torres, attending as a military observer, responded bluntly, "You're not losing innocence, counselor. You're gaining wisdom. Innocence is beautiful until it gets you killed. Ask any human who survived the AI wars. We lost our innocence centuries ago and we're still here because we learned from it." The vote took 3 days. In the end, the Federation approved the new security structure by a narrow margin. The decision was controversial, with many species reluctantly accepting it as necessary rather than good. But it passed. With the new system in place, the Council took up the question of humanity's status. Mavrin addressed Ambassador Chen directly. "The quarantine that we imposed on your species was unjust and foolish. We would like to lift it immediately and offer Earth full membership in the Federation under the new framework. You would have the same rights and privileges as any member species, but we would no longer require you to share technologies you deem sensitive." Victoria felt emotion welling up in her throat. This was what Earth had wanted from the beginning. But the journey to get here had cost so much. On behalf of humanity, we accept. But I want to add one condition. The Council waited, curious what condition humanity could possibly need to add. We want a formal role in the new Security Council, not because we think we're superior, but because we have experience with the kind of threats you've now faced. Let us be the species that asks the uncomfortable questions. Let us be the ones who plan for the worst-case scenarios that everyone else wants to ignore. Let us be your strategic paranoids so the rest of you can maintain your optimism.